You feeling it, boo? You feeling this Aquarius energy? I mean, this is a really intense month. And I wanted to throw an extra podcast in this week because we have the new moon. And while I don't share a lot of my knowledge in astrology on this podcast, I just wanted to give you a little tidbit of information. And then I want to reintroduce myself to y'all because I have a lot of new listeners. And I just want to tell you a little backstory about who I am. So first, we're rolling into the new moon in Aquarius on the 9th. It's going to be at 21 degrees. Like how I kind of question that because I don't have the information in front of me, but I believe it's at 21 degrees. And the leading planet here is going to be Uranus. Don't you just want to say Uranus? I mean, let's just admit it. Let's just be honest here. We're putting it all on the table. Anyway, it's the leading planet. And Uranus will be in hard aspect to the sun and the new moon. So this means that you better buckle up because there's going to be some turbulence the next week. Uranus is going to be rapidly trying to find the weak links in your relationships or your situations. And if there is no alignment for future value, Uranus is going to sweep them away. Just take them right away. So look at not only your personal relationships, but we're talking about business relationships because this is a business podcast. And also look at the situations in which you're in, because like I said, it's relationships and situations. So it's a good time to reflect. And many of you are super cosmic already. You know that the new moon is a good time to set intentions. So take a moment during this new moon and reflect. Reflect on the situations within your business that aren't in alignment, that don't have any value to you, that are keeping you trapped from moving forward. Belief systems that you're telling yourself might be like, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. Those two stories don't serve anyone. I know the reality when you look at your schedule and you look at your bank account, but that's a 3D, a human experience, a human perspective. So where can you tune into those beliefs around those two stories to see the situations that they have materialized in your circumstances so that you can let go? And of course, are there prospects or friends that you have on social media that aren't serving you? Are there family traumas or tribulations? Really stop and slow down because Uranus is going to do this no matter what. Okay, it's going to happen. It's best to be prepared and make the conscious decisions and respond instead of react to situations. So if you already know that there is a conflict or a situation that doesn't offer any value to you, you're prepared and you can approach it open-heartedly, but also being responsive instead of reactionary, defensive. Make sense? Makes sense. Don't even know why I ask. Okay, so we have quite a few new listeners, and I just wanted to introduce myself again. I'm Lynn Louise. I'm the Cosmic Valkyrie, your business coach here on this podcast, and the creator of the Evolution 10X method, which combines cosmic law, fundamental business strategy, and brain set, I call it, not mindset. I always call mind with a capital M, the big mind. So I call this a brain set because it really is your three-dimensional brain processes, okay? So I'll give you a little background on who I am. No chronological order. I'm just going to wing this because it's like a conversation. We're just having tea this morning or afternoon. So really, like a lot of you, I've known from a very early age that I was here to help others. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew that I had big dreams. One of my big dreams as a kid was to join the Peace Corps and travel around the world helping people in need. And like most of my listeners, at an early age, I experienced trauma. I was 15 when I was first sexually assaulted by an upperclassman and friend. And that's really when everything began to shift for me. And this was back in a time when we didn't talk about sexual assault, and much less if it was by somebody that you knew. And I'm going to be honest, I believe that not much has changed in that realm, so it's still that way. And a lot of my listeners have experienced such traumas as well. But at that moment, everything switched for me. Like my whole thought process, my hopes, my dreams. I had this internal fear. My body was reacting and my brain was trying to keep me safe. It was trying to keep me out of danger from that ever happening again. There are a lot of stories that my brain developed from that experience, but I'm not going to go into all them. I'm going to go into the one that is primary about how I got off track to my purpose in this life, which was helping others. At that moment, my logical brain knew that it wasn't my fault, but my subconscious was creating stories to keep me safe. And one of the stories that it created was, air quote, you can't trust yourself, Lilu. You can't trust yourself to make the big decisions in your life because look what happens. And so at that moment, I began to create new behaviors and patterns that took my life on a very different journey. I started listening to counselors, to therapists, to professors. And they told me, go to university, get an education, climb the corporate America ladder, and then you'll be successful and you'll be happy. Does that sound familiar? Probably for most of you. And I did it. Y'all, I did it all. And I climbed the ladder, had a great corner office overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, and everything in my life looked great. I had money. I had a wonderful relationship. I had a penthouse apartment. I could buy the clothes I wanted when I wanted. I could travel. It looked wonderful. But on the inside, I was falling apart. And there was one day I was standing in my office and I was overlooking the bridge like I normally did around break, drinking my afternoon coffee for the energy because I was exhausted, spending way too much time at the office and not enough time on myself. And I just was standing there and I felt like my entire world was like burning up around me. And I looked at it from the outside and it looked great, like I said. But I was reflecting on what was going on the inside. I felt like an imposter in my own life. I didn't know how the hell I had managed to get where I was, and I had no idea how I was going to maintain it. I was depressed. I was overwhelmed. I was stressed out. I was emotionally eating. I was emotionally drinking. I was punishing myself the next day with over-exercise, and I was continuing that cycle all day long, from the moment I woke up until the moment I went to bed. It was like I was dying from inside. And the repercussions in my physical health were phenomenal. My coworkers would tell me how great I looked after I lost 20 pounds out of depression. And I'm going to tell you, this girl did not need to lose 20 pounds. But while I was standing there in that chaos, I realized one thing, that I had climbed the wrong mountain. That I had climbed the mountain that everyone had told me to take to create joy in my life. And that wasn't what I wanted. I had always wanted to help people. I wanted to serve others. I wanted to transform lives. That was the day everything shifted for me. Now, I would love to sit here and tell you that that day, everything changed and it was puppies and rainbows from there on out and I didn't have a lick of work to do. But I would be lying. Because that's not how it works, is it? I started my personal development journey there. And the first thing I got was a therapist. And then I dove into things on my own. And as I uncovered all these things, I started realizing my true calling and my passion. And it took me a long time, y'all. It took me decades until I had my first business. That's how much development I had to go through and how many things I had to find resolutions for before I could step into my personal power and start a business. And the first one I had was a boot camp. And I started it because I wanted other people to work out with. And it was wildly successful. And the truth is that corporate America position I had taught me a lot about business ownership. I knew how to help other people grow businesses, and I just implemented a lot of what I already knew. And then I found out how to fill the gaps. So I had that for quite a few years, and it was absolutely marvelous. But my husband and I decided that we wanted to move further north in the United States. And so we moved further north. And of course, I couldn't take everyone in my boot camp with me. So I ended up giving it to an assistant coach and leaving her the business. And she still runs it today, and it's very successful. But once I got up here, I decided that I didn't want an in-person business anymore. I didn't want the coaching business. And to be honest, there's a lot of New Yorkers that are kind of wimpy when it comes to the cold weather and being out in it in the winter. I'm not, which is crazy. So I didn't want to start that from scratch. It seemed really uphill. It seemed like pushing that boulder to get it going. And it just really didn't interest me because I hadn't spent any time in the community. I didn't really know anybody. I hadn't networked. And so I just decided to continue my health journey on my own. But then I had to figure out what I did want because I had no clue. And so I went back to work. I got a full-time job and I put in the hours, and I allowed myself to really dive into what it was I was good at. What are my passions? How can I help people? What can I help them achieve? And I knew I wanted it to be online. So I spent the time and energy it took to really dive into that and brainstorm with myself and my husband and friends. And eventually I came to the conclusion that it was going to be business coaching. What I want you to know here is that I made the decision, and it didn't happen overnight, that I had immediate success because I was coming into an online industry that none of my friends on social media were entrepreneurs. They were friends and family. And so I was starting this out from scratch, but for some reason it seemed like it was going to be easier. And in many aspects, y'all, it was. But in other aspects, it wasn't. But here's the beautiful thing. I figured it all out. I ironed out the gap. I created a beautiful, amazing business. And for the first 3 years, I was making $80K, and I was comfortable with that because that's all I could see. I didn't realize the opportunity that was in my lap. All I could see was, oh, this is going great. 80K is wonderful. But I'm going to be straight up honest with y'all. 80K is not a livable wage. And I know I'm saying this from a place of privilege, but 100K, that concept of making 100K a year, was developed back in 1980 when the price of a new car was $8,000 and a loaf of bread was 50 cents. And you know what happened? Capitalism got their clutches into it, and they decided to create compensation plans around 100K that made it seem like that was the golden egg. But you ask any family of 4 if 80K is enough money, and they will tell you no. And at the time, my husband and I had 2 foster children, and it was not easy. And I didn't know that there was a whole world out there on the internet that I had no idea about. But one day, one of those Facebook ads came across my feed, and I was like, oh, I could make more money, right? And so I started looking into it. I started thinking, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? Because I'm going to be straight up. I was doing one-on-one clients. I wasn't doing group program. I hadn't even thought about that as a concept. And that ad opened up my eyes to the power of possibilities within this business model. So I decided in 2020 that I was going to start online programming, group programming. And guess what happened? Less than 30 days later, I was involved in a very serious car wreck that left me unable to walk for about 6 months. I had surgeries, I had massive concussions, broken bones, all that kind of good stuff. And I had to stay reclined, like literally reclined with my legs in the air for 22 hours a day. So those other 2 hours a day, I was eating, I was getting bathed, and I was surprisingly business building. Y'all, I still did it. And that's what I'm like, I'm not special. I am not special. If I could do this, having 2 hours in my day of consciousness. And I'm going to tell you, I had brain fog from concussions and whatever. If I could do this and launch my first group program, anyone could do it. Now, here's what I want you to know. That first group program, I had 4 people register for it. And it was time constrained. Okay. So it was, I shouldn't say time constraint. It had a beginning and end. It was not evergreen like my mastermind is now. But it was the very first program that I was developing my Evolution 10X method. I was doing it beta style. 4 people signed up. I think it was 8 weeks. After that first 8 weeks, then I did it again. And 3 of the people signed up again. And then I had 2 other new people. The cool thing is that I grew into this business. Now, here's the really cool thing I want you to hear. When you have somebody like me in your corner that has figured out all the gaps, has been able to close them and shorten the process of getting to 100K, it makes it so much easier for you to do that. Oh my God, so much easier. But here's what I want you to know. It takes all 3. You can have the best mindset. You can be good with your money stories. Although so many business coaches out there are going to tell you have money blocks. I'm going to tell you the exact opposite. You know how to transform those money blocks. The thing that you're probably lacking, which is 97% of the coaching population that is struggling with getting their business off the ground, fundamental business strategy. And here's the cool thing about the business strategy. When you actually know how to go from prospecting to profit, like taking your leads and nurturing them into prospects and then taking them through the sales funnel and being able to close that sale, it makes it so much easier. You know what to do, when to do it, and then keep your eye out on what to expect the result to be. Just learning the strategy in a way that is comprehensive so that you're not guessing or trying to piecemeal it together is important. It is a huge part of the mindset process, because once you have that clarity, guess what happens? You don't have self-doubt. You're not trying to second guess yourself on what you're supposed to do and when you're supposed to do it. You know exactly how it goes together, and boom, there you got your time freedom and you're making money. So it all comes together. But you need the mindset. I call it brain set, remember. You need the cosmic law, because we all are super cosmic luminous beings. So connecting deeply to that higher self is really important. And then you need the fundamental strategy. So if you're missing one of those, you can have the best mindset, right? But if you don't have the fundamental strategy, take that out of the mix, you're not going to have success. You could have all the strategy, but if you do not have the right mindset to be able to accomplish it, not gonna create the results that you want. You can say the same for cosmic law. You need all 3. I'm going to wrap up my story and I'm going to give you some information so you know about where I operate from. I am very matter of fact. I'm straightforward. I am not a cheerleading coach. I do cheer you on, but I will not argue for your limitations. I'm a manifesting generator 6-3, revolution in all 3 phases, and I am in the last phase. So bring it on. I am here to close gaps for people. I am here to help people get the results that they want faster. That is my human design. So when I coach, you will notice that you will have aha moments, one right after the other, and I'm closing down and condensing that timeline so that you can get what you need faster. You like how I snapped there? I did. Kind of added a little branding technique there. I'm going to call it a branding technique. I'm not sure if it is. Anyway, I'm an Aquarius full on. Girl, I am so proud. I think that Aquariuses are always proud. We are individuals that don't try to be unique. It's just who we are. And it makes it sound like, oh, you're bragging about it. But I'm going to tell you this. It has not always been easy, and it is not always easy living outside the constraints of social conditioning. But it does help me now in this age of Aquarius, where Pluto has moved into Aquarius. Now I have the opportunity to take all of that knowledge, all of my traits and abilities to really help you move into your power and create that business of your dreams through helping others. So, thank you for listening to my personal story and join the free workshop that I have coming up. Attract your first 100 aligned clients. Let's do it. Let's make 2024 your best year yet.